They say love is blind, but after 27 years of marriage, I've learned it's also deaf, dumb, and apparently capable of leaving passive-aggressive post-it notes in the fridge. Like the one I found stuck to my leftover chicken marsala. Not good past Tuesday. Toss it. Thing is, I made it Wednesday night. I laughed out loud, not because it was funny, but because it reminded me that even rot is subjective when you live with someone who spent the last decade subtly editing your reality. And when I saw Janine's phone left on the kitchen counter, Janine, the woman who wouldn't even shower without it in reach, I didn't just suspect something was wrong. I knew it. That morning had started like most of ours do, silently. Two professionals in our 50s gliding around each other like diplomats at a summit, all courtesy and no contact. I was making coffee, real coffee, not the protein-infused oat dust she calls her morning fuel, when I noticed something. A ceramic bowl on the breakfast bar. Inside it, her engagement ring. Not the wedding band that's always been hit or miss since she rebranded herself as a lifestyle consultant, but the engagement ring, the one she hasn't taken off in over 2 decades, even during surgery once. It sat there like a dead insect. I didn't touch it. Instead, I looked at the phone. Face down. Still warm from her hand. Her purse was gone, but the phone? She hadn't gone far. I flipped it over. No code. She never believed in locking it. Said it was bad marital energy. I suppose banging a 20-something motivational speaker named Skylar is what she considered good energy. There was a notification. Not a text. Not even an email. A note in her calendar. 5:30 p.m., meditation at Ethan's loft. We don't know an Ethan. At least, I don't. I took my time with it. Checked the rest of her calendar. No mention of the keynote she told me she was flying out to give next Thursday. Just a cryptic block of time marked Vancouver Flow. I've worked in HR for 30 years. I can spot a sanitized lie the way a mechanic hears a dying transmission. So I did what I always do when something's off. I cleaned. While I dusted our bookshelf, I found her Kindle left open, spine up. That was another red flag. Janine treats books like artifacts, she once cried when I dog-eared a travel guide. I picked it up. The page had notes. Highlighted passages from some tantra bro named Dax Temple. Margins scribbled with things like finally feel seen and what Carl never understood. Now, I'm no romantic, but I do understand when someone's writing emotional obituaries for their spouse. Still, I stayed calm. That's what people like her never account for. They build these little lies expecting fireworks. But me? I bring frostbite. I put the ring back in its box, wiped the phone with my sleeve so no prints would make her suspicious, and sat in the dining room with my coffee in the silence she'd carefully curated. I watched our backyard, manicured, professional, like our marriage, and I waited. She returned 10 minutes later, laughing into her Apple Watch like a teenager. She didn't see me at first. When she did, she flinched. Just enough. Then smiled. Oh, hey babe, thought you had a client call. I smiled back. It canceled. Chicken's still in the fridge if you're hungry. She blinked, then headed upstairs. I heard her footsteps pause when she hit the landing, probably realized she left the phone. I sipped my coffee. I didn't follow her. I didn't need to. See, the first break in a marriage doesn't come from screaming or slamming doors. It comes from noticing the tiny hairline fracture in the porcelain mask. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. So I spent that entire afternoon not confronting her, but charting. Charting the inconsistencies. Her meetings that didn't exist. Her emails that had typos she never used to make. The sudden interest in yoga despite hating anyone who wore beaded bracelets. That's when the real betrayal hit. Not just that she'd found someone else, but that she was sloppy. That she thought I wouldn't notice. That she thought I was so emotionally sedated by years of quiet evenings and strategic sex that I'd just fade into the wallpaper. She didn't understand something critical about me. I don't get angry. I get organized. So while she showered that night, longer than usual, humming something tuneless, I sat with her phone again. Looked through the deleted texts. Nothing there. But I checked the recently deleted folder in her photos. 2 were gone. One had a mirror, hotel bathroom, and her arm, half visible. The other, just her feet beside a glass of white wine and a man's jacket draped over a chair. Size large. Navy blue. Not mine. But the real moment, the moment I knew I was about to play a very long, very satisfying game, came at dinner. We were eating salmon. She complimented the spice blend. Is this new? She asked. I said, yeah. Got it from a vendor Margot recommended. She looked up, just a flicker, because Margot had left for San Diego a week ago. Or so Janine had said. I didn't mention it. Just smiled. Funny, isn't it? I said, taking a bite. How some things taste completely different when you know what's in them. Her fork paused. I watched her chew. That was the moment the first crack widened, and I knew, without saying another word, that this game was mine to control. For most of our marriage, Janine had a rhythm, a cadence to her life that felt predictable in the way a ticking clock is predictable. Morning smoothies, client calls by 9, a midday walk around the neighborhood with her earbuds in, then back home to type out articles with titles like Awaken the Woman Within and Leadership Starts in the Spine. She wasn't warm, but she was consistent. And I loved that about her. She was structured, efficient, disciplined. If she made plans, they were detailed. If she spoke, it had intent. I didn't just trust her. I admired her, even when her ambitions outpaced my own. I remember the first time I noticed something shift. It was small. She came home one afternoon smelling like spearmint and sandalwood, and when I asked about it, she said she'd stopped by a meditation pop-up in the city. Janine hated incense, called it burned dirt. I laughed and said, new tastes. She smiled, too fast, and said, new self. I thought she was joking. She wasn't. Then came the books. Not her usual productivity tomes or branding manifestos, but thick, abstract ones with titles like Embodied Light and Erotic Actualization, Beyond the Partner Model. She read them at night, curled on the couch like a teenager, underlining phrases and occasionally taking notes on her phone. She stopped watching TV with me, said sitcoms flattened her energy. I noticed she began dressing differently too. Not provocatively, just deliberately. Clothes with more flow, more layers. Shawls and bangles and things she would have mocked 5 years ago. She started taking long baths again, candles lit, doors locked, phone always inside with her. When I offered to join her once, like we used to back when we still reached for each other without pretext, she laughed and said, "It's not that kind of bath, Carl." Not unkindly, but with a finality that didn't need explaining. Then there were the boundaries. That's what she called them. Healthy space, she said. She started sleeping with earbuds in, to help regulate my dreams, she explained. She'd go to sleep before I came up, which meant I started talking to her more through sticky notes than conversation. One morning, I asked her if she wanted to go up to the lake house with me for the weekend. No agenda, just us. She said, "That feels like pressure." I didn't know what to do with that. I wasn't asking for anything extravagant. Just a drive. Some silence. Maybe a walk by the water. But she looked at me like I'd suggested we reenact our wedding vows in a parking lot. "I need time alone with my thoughts," she said. "You don't have to solve that." I tried not to overthink it. Women evolve. Men stagnate. I've heard the TED Talks. Maybe she was just ahead of me for now. Maybe I'd catch up. But things kept piling. Her social media accounts, which I used to be able to see just fine, suddenly started requiring logins. "Just cleaning up my digital footprint," she said. Then came the charges. Unexplained ones. Not big. Not enough to scream affair, but enough to whisper something wasn't right. A $180 charge from a boutique hotel downtown, listed on a Tuesday afternoon. Lunch meeting, she said. But she brought home no notes, no new clients, and no receipt. She did bring back a new scarf. Men don't notice scarves, they say, but I do. Especially when they still smell faintly of cologne that isn't mine. The final straw before my mind fully opened wasn't even dramatic. It was a seminar. She told me she was going to a wellness leadership retreat 3 hours away. Left on Friday morning. Said she'd be home Sunday night. I trusted her. Of course I did. We've built a life on that trust. Joint bank accounts, shared mortgage, coordinated calendars. But something in her voice that morning, it wasn't just excitement. It was freedom, like a high school girl sneaking out of a bedroom window. And when I went to move her car into the garage that afternoon, I found a flyer tucked beneath the passenger seat. It wasn't for a retreat. It was for a tantric breathwork workshop in town. That day, I checked the address. 10 minutes away. I called the retreat center she said she was staying at. No record of a Janine booked that weekend. Still, I didn't confront her. That's the part people don't understand. Confrontation feels like control. I needed to observe. To know. To watch her burn her own bridge, brick by brick, while I stood at the other end documenting the fire. When she got home Sunday night, glowing and exhausted, she dropped her bag and kissed me on the cheek like a neighbor might. "So much clarity," she said. "I feel like I've reset my nervous system." I nodded. "That's good," I said, helping her bring in the rest of her things. Inside her overnight bag, carefully folded, was a small velvet pouch, one I hadn't seen before. Inside it, a crystal phallic enough to make Freud blush. She saw me looking. "It's for grounding," she said. Then she laughed, added, "You wouldn't understand." Maybe not. But I understood enough. Her smile was bright, but it stopped before reaching her eyes. And in that moment, standing in our hallway, I realized the woman I'd married hadn't just drifted. She'd taken a raft and set it on fire halfway across the lake. It happened on a Thursday, which is the kind of day betrayal likes best: quiet, routine, unsuspicious. I was upstairs in the office sorting through old tax files, scanning receipts from our trip to Charleston 3 years ago, back when Janine still held my hand in public. She was downstairs, supposedly on a Zoom call with a new female client, someone she said was rebranding her divorce energy into a financial narrative. I remember that exact phrase because it didn't make any damn sense. But I'd heard enough of Janine's client calls to know most of it was expensive word salad dressed up with empowerment hashtags. Still, I respected her hustle. Until I heard her laugh. Not her usual professional chuckle, the one she used to fake engagement during consults. This was deeper, warmer, real. And then I heard it again, her voice, but lower, softer, followed by something I hadn't heard in almost a year. "You always say the best things." My spine stiffened. It wasn't the words, not really. It was how she said them. Like she was melting. Like she was 20 again. Like she was talking to someone she wanted to keep warm between her teeth. I stood still, let the silence stretch. The house wasn't big enough to pretend I'd misheard. Her office door was cracked just an inch, and she'd pulled the curtain slightly shut, a habit she never had before. That's when I moved, quietly, no sudden sounds, no creaks. I stepped down the stairs one at a time and paused just before the hallway turned. I wasn't going to eavesdrop. I was going to witness. And I did. From that thin sliver of space where the curtain parted, I could see her on the call. Not just sitting, but posed. Elbow rested on the arm of the chair, chin tucked delicately into her palm, that signature sideways smirk she only used when she wanted something. She was looking directly into the screen. The camera was angled in such a way that I couldn't see who she was talking to, but then she said his name. Ethan. Not Mr. Davis. Not my client. Ethan. Casual. Intimate. Familiar. And then, clear as any confession, she said, "I wish I could just disappear with you." That was it. Not sex. Not scandal. Just that one line. And my heart didn't pound. It didn't even flicker. Instead, it slowed, like the rest of me had entered some sort of calm I hadn't known I was capable of. I didn't make a sound. Didn't even breathe. I simply turned, walked back up the stairs, and sat down in my chair with the receipts still in my lap. For a few minutes, I stared at the numbers, at the thin printed lines documenting our life together, the hotel stays, the dinners, the gas stations between states, a whole life of paper trails. And in that moment, I realized I was just another receipt. Something she'd used, filed away, and now considered expired. I didn't confront her that night. I didn't look at her differently. I didn't act distant. I kissed her forehead when she passed behind me to get a glass of water, and she smiled with the same practiced charm she gave her YouTube followers when she pretended to be vulnerable. But inside, something had gone extinct. I wasn't angry. I wasn't heartbroken. I was done. Not with the marriage, not yet. I wasn't about to let her see what I knew. No, I was done playing the part of the oblivious husband. From this point forward, I would be exactly what she never expected: present, perceptive, and dangerous. I didn't need to catch her in the act. I didn't need proof. I had already heard enough. That one sentence, "I wish I could disappear with you," had ripped the fabric of our marriage like a nail through silk. Not because it was romantic, but because it wasn't me. Because I hadn't heard her say anything like that to me in over a decade. And now she was giving it away, not even like a secret, but like a gift she never intended me to earn again. She went to bed early that night, said she was drained from emotional labor. I nodded, offered to bring her tea. She declined. Upstairs, I heard the familiar sound of her door clicking shut, followed by the gentle hum of her sleep meditation playlist. Meanwhile, I sat downstairs in the dark with nothing but the kitchen clock ticking and the faint blue light of her laptop screen still glowing in her office. I stared at it for a long time. That machine held the rest of the story. I could feel it, but I wouldn't touch it. Not yet. No, Janine had just made her first mistake. She showed her cards without realizing the table had turned, and I was going to make her play every hand until the deck collapsed in her lap. quietly, patiently, with surgical precision. Because now, I wasn't trying to save our marriage. I was saving the evidence. And the silence? That was just me sharpening the blade. I started by asking her what she had planned for Friday. Not because I didn't already know, but because I wanted to watch her lie. "Client lunch," she said, glancing up from her phone, voice casual, eyes unfocused. "New woman, local author, looking to do a full rebrand." I smiled. "Sounds interesting." That was it. No pushback, no second question, just enough rope. What she didn't know was that earlier that week, I'd installed a tiny GPS tracker inside the lining of her car key fob, a model so discreet it wouldn't even register if she shook it. She'd never find it. It pings location data every 30 seconds, and that Friday, while she was supposedly lunching, I watched her drive straight past the restaurant district and into a quiet suburban neighborhood where Ethan, the mystery man, apparently rents a 2-bedroom loft that doubles as a place for meditation and flow coaching. She was inside for 2 hours. I didn't text. I didn't call. I just watched the dot on my screen stay put, then eventually drift back to the part of town where she usually fabricates alibis. I even called the restaurant she said she was going to. The hostess said there was no reservation under Janine's name, no walk-ins that matched her description. "Bit of a slow day," she added. "Just one couple came in around 2, but they didn't stay long." I thanked her politely and hung up. Later that night, I asked Janine how it went. She launched into a 5-minute spiel about emotional archetypes and deep brand alignment, which sounded a lot like something she Googled 15 minutes before she got home. I nodded, even asked a follow-up question to make her feel safe. "What's this woman's name again?" Janine blinked. "Oh, Cassandra. Cassandra Bloom." I checked later. No such person exists. No online presence. No LLC. No LinkedIn. Not even a Facebook page. Which, in 2025, is like claiming you've never had a phone. Next, I contacted Margot, her best friend. The one Janine thinks is too flighty to matter, too distracted to be dangerous. What Janine didn't know is that Margot had messaged me weeks ago, after noticing how strange Janine had been acting. I never followed up then. I do now. I invited Margot for coffee under the pretense of wanting to surprise Janine for her birthday. And during that conversation, I asked one simple question. "Do you remember that retreat Janine said she went to in March?" Margot paused. "The one in Asheville?" I nodded. "Yeah, she said you helped her pack." Margot furrowed her brow. "She didn't go to Asheville. She said she was flying to Denver. Had a speaking gig." There it was. 2 conflicting lies, stitched too loosely to hold. Margot laughed it off, but I saw the way her smile stiffened. She was starting to see it too. Before we parted, I asked her, quietly, carefully, not to mention our chat to Janine. "I just want to make her birthday special," I said. Margot nodded, but there was hesitation in her eyes. "That's fine. Let the seeds bloom on their own." Then I got creative. I remembered how much Janine relied on her calendar, how she always said, "If it's not on the schedule, it doesn't exist." So I created a fake email address. Female name. Professional tone. I crafted a message as if from a podcast producer, claiming to want Janine on a wellness-themed episode and asking for a quick Zoom intro. I sent it late at night, knowing she checks her inbox first thing in the morning. An hour after the fake message was opened, I saw her rewrite her afternoon schedule, shifted her private client slot back by 2 hours, then deleted it entirely. Later, she told me she spent the afternoon journaling. Alone. She even showed me a fresh page in her notebook, full of affirmations. I didn't point out the ink was still slightly damp, or that the quote at the top had been lifted straight from the message I'd sent in the email. She was trying to bluff with a losing hand. The final move that week was subtle. I left a simple post-it note on the fridge that read, "Dinner with the Johnsons, Thursday, 6 p.m. We had no dinner with the Johnsons. In fact, they moved out of state last year. But she didn't correct it. She didn't even ask. She just told me she might be late because of a breathwork session. I told her no problem. I'd meet her there. Her eyes flickered. She paused, half a second too long, then smiled. "I'll text you the address." I already had it. She was never going to the Johnsons. And now, she knew I might show up. So I waited. Watched. Sure enough, that evening, the GPS signal stopped updating entirely for 30 minutes, like she'd parked, turned off location sharing, or maybe even ditched the car for a rideshare. But I had a backup. A signal logger I'd tucked into her yoga mat bag last week, something that connects to any nearby Bluetooth devices. When she got home late that night, flushed and vague, I pulled the data from the logger. It had recorded 3 devices nearby: her phone, a Bluetooth speaker, and something labeled Ethan iPad. I smiled. I didn't need to check it. I already knew. She thinks she's playing chess. She's playing checkers. And I've been watching her jump her own pieces for weeks now, grinning every time she thinks she's safe. But she isn't. I haven't just been following her steps. I've been paving the road beneath her, brick by brick, to lead her straight into the moment she thinks she's won, when in fact, I'll already be at the finish line, holding her crown in one hand and a full record of her destruction in the other. It happened at her event, which felt fitting. Janine had always said she was most aligned when she had a microphone in her hand and a room full of people pretending her philosophies made sense. A live workshop downtown, marketed as The Awakening, Radical Identity Beyond Partnership, sponsored by a wellness startup too new to have earned any shame. I sat near the back, unannounced, uninvited, dressed in the quiet gray blazer she bought me for our anniversary last year, said it made me look subtle, but centered. Poetic. I watched her work the room like a televangelist in yoga pants, preaching balance while leaving emotional wreckage in her wake. And when she opened the floor for questions, I waited. Not for the mic. Not for the right moment. I waited until the session ended, until the soft music came on and her acolytes swarmed her with affirmations and filtered selfies. Then I walked up slowly, just a man among many. She spotted me. Her face twitched, just for a moment. Panic? Surprise? I couldn't tell. "Carl," she said, voice a little too bright. "I didn't know you were coming." I smiled. "Thought I'd support the rebranding of our marriage." She laughed nervously. "Don't be dramatic." I handed her a small manila envelope. Lightweight. Clean. Professional. "I figured you might want to see the full version of the photos your friend Margot tried not to tag you in." Her smile froze. She opened it. Inside were 6 glossy prints. Ethan's hand on the small of her back. Her mouth on his collarbone. The 2 of them entering his apartment, her fingers laced through his. And one of her, alone, holding her phone in front of a mirror, wearing the shawl I bought her for our 25th anniversary, the one she claimed she lost. Silence. Her fingers trembled slightly. "These are out of context," she said. "Photos lie." I nodded. "So do people. That's why I also brought the voice memo. The one you sent Ethan. The one where you said, and I quote, 'I can't wait until he finds out. Then we can finally be honest.' That did it." Her shoulders stiffened. Then the next act began. "Okay, look," she said, shifting to performance mode. "Yes, things got complicated. But it's not like I planned any of this. You were never there for me emotionally. You were always distracted." I stared at her. "Distracted is what you called me while I was arranging hospice care for my father last year." Interesting timing. Her mouth opened. No words came out. It wasn't a betrayal. She tried again. It was exploration. I needed to know who I was without all this. She gestured vaguely between us, like our entire marriage was a tangle of receipts she no longer wanted to sort. "You're allowed to grow," I said, "but not to rot the roots and pretend the fruit still belongs to me." Her expression shifted. Now she was annoyed. "You're being clinical," she snapped. "You always intellectualize things to avoid your feelings. Maybe if you'd been more emotionally available, I wouldn't have needed Ethan." I nodded again. "So this was my fault?" "Partially," she said, with a shrug that tried to reclaim her authority. "You made it easy to look elsewhere." "And yet," I said, "I was the one who noticed, documented, waited. Ethan never even knew I was 5 feet from him at that cafe in May." Her confidence cracked then. A slight flush at her neck, a narrowing of the eyes. "You spied on me?" she hissed, lowering her voice as her sycophants hovered nearby. "I investigated," I corrected. "You built a life on fiction. I just turned the pages." Then came the mocking confidence, the final bluff. "You think this will ruin me?" she said, almost laughing. "You think people in that room care who I sleep with? I teach them to transcend shame. You're trying to play checkers on a chessboard I built." I smiled again, colder this time. "No, Janine. I'm not trying to ruin you. I'm just letting you read the final chapter before I publish it. With receipts, timelines, audio, and a notarized letter explaining why half of your business expenses were charged to our joint account under false pretenses." She went pale. The mockery drained from her face. "Carl," she whispered. "You wouldn't." "I haven't," I said. "Yet." She looked around then, realizing where she was, who might be watching. Her assistant at the door. 2 followers on their phones. Someone from the startup drifting too close. And that's when I saw it. Not regret. Not sadness. But fear. Finally, I leaned in close enough to smell the lavender oil she always used when she was hiding something. You thought I was slow, I said quietly. You thought silence was weakness. But it was patience. And now you're standing in the center of your own illusion, wondering when the curtain will drop. I didn't leave. Not yet. I stood there, calm, composed, as her breath quickened and her eyes darted from face to face like someone realizing the exit signs had all been turned around. Let her sit in it. Let her feel the walls inching closer. The real performance had just begun. She followed me out of the venue like a woman chasing her own shadow, fast, breathless, heels clicking on the concrete like panic trying to keep up with itself, and when I stopped walking and turned to face her, she was already unraveling. You don't get to just drop that bomb and walk away like you're some kind of victim, she spat, eyes wild, hands gesturing like punctuation marks to sentences that never quite made sense. You've been emotionally absent for years, Carl, years, and now you want to play the moral authority? I said nothing, just looked at her. That silence burned hotter than any insult, and she felt it, because her voice got louder. You smothered me, she said, stepping closer, the edge in her voice sharpened with fear masquerading as rage. You treated me like a brand, not a person. You kept everything so calculated and cold, like I was a performance review you were waiting to file away. I blinked. Slowly. You were cold long before I stopped trying to warm you, I said, my voice even, quiet enough that she had to lean in to hear it. She pulled back like she'd been slapped. You're disgusting, she hissed. A coward. Hiding behind spreadsheets and bank statements like that's real love. No wonder I needed someone who actually saw me. I nodded, just once. He saw you, I replied, and he still kept a burner phone. That one landed. She froze. What? He's cheating on you, Janine. Always was. Even now. I watched him kiss another woman outside that same building you sneak off to. Blonde. Younger. Looks like your intern, actually. Her mouth opened, then closed. The pause was long enough for her to realize I wasn't bluffing. You're lying, she said, but it came out brittle. She tried to rally. None of this would have happened if you were a real man. A man who paid attention. A man who made me feel something. I stepped closer this time, not angry, just clear. A real man doesn't have to beg his wife not to weaponize silence every night for a decade. A real man doesn't stay up past midnight planning anniversary trips while his wife is busy reading about tantric soul bonds with men who can't spell integrity. Her face twisted, but she had nothing to say. So she did what manipulators always do when their script runs out, she cried. You're going to ruin my life, she whispered, tears slipping down without grace. I built everything from nothing. You were supposed to support me. I tilted my head. I did. You just used that support as scaffolding to climb over me. She threw up her hands. You can't just act like this didn't happen. You can't just detach. I looked at her, truly looked, and for the first time, saw what she really was, not the woman I married, not even the woman who cheated, but something worse, a desperate person losing her narrative. I detached the moment you stopped being real, I said. I just took my time confirming it. Her eyes flickered, desperate now, searching for a foothold, some thread of sympathy she could yank to pull the power back toward her. What about the house? She asked suddenly. The business? The people who believe in me? I smiled then, the kind of smile you offer a stranger on a train before exiting at your stop. They'll believe in someone else next quarter. That's how branding works. She laughed sharp, bitter, broken. You're nothing without me. You don't even exist online. You're a ghost in your own life. Exactly, I said. And now I'm haunting you. The words hit her like glass underfoot. She flinched, eyes glossy now not with sadness, but with the dawning horror that she had lost something she didn't even know she'd need, my attention. You can't do this, she said again, but now it wasn't anger, it was desperation, cracked and raw. You can't just stop caring. I leaned in, voice low, final. Janine, I didn't stop caring. I stopped recognizing you. And once you lose your shape in someone's memory, there's nothing left to save. She tried to say something else, maybe one last line from the play she's rehearsed all her life, but I turned and walked away, calm, measured, deliberate. Behind me, I heard her breathing shift quick, unsteady, like a person realizing the air around them is getting thinner. She didn't follow. Not this time. Because she finally understood what scared her most, not my rage, not my pain, but my silence. The one thing she never planned for. The thing she could never manipulate. The morning after the confrontation, I began my campaign, not in anger, but with the calm efficiency of a man who's been taking notes for months. I started with the bank accounts. I'd already opened a new one in my name 2 weeks earlier, silently redirecting my direct deposits and shifting my autopay bills to that new lane, like rerouting water flow before damming the river. Then I scheduled a transfer of 80% of our joint liquid funds to a temporary holding account I controlled, legal, documented, and done within the bounds of our prenuptial agreement, which she hadn't read since 1998 and probably assumed didn't matter anymore. I called the bank manager directly, someone I'd known from a charity board, and ensured that all cards tied to the joint account would be marked for inactivity within 24 hours. Fraud protection, I said. Just protocol. Then came the utilities, the streaming services, the cloud storage, every digital thread that connected her lifestyle to my support. Cancelled, rerouted, replaced. Not out of pettiness. Out of discipline. The car she drove, leased in my name. The insurance, my name. The registration, my signature. I logged in, scheduled the repossession pickup, and arranged a courtesy call to be placed to her at noon the next day. Polite, professional, devastating. I didn't want a scene. I wanted silence she couldn't explain. I contacted my lawyer next. Told him to proceed with the draft we prepared weeks ago, back when suspicion turned to certainty. A divorce filing structured like a thesis paper, orderly, indisputable, fortified with a digital dossier that included timestamped GPS logs, audio files, screenshots of messages and calendar entries. Even her own photos pulled from deleted files she didn't realize were recoverable from her cloud. It wasn't just about catching her cheating. It was about showing a pattern of deception, financial misconduct, and moral breach so clear no mediator could pretend neutrality. And I didn't go for war. I went for precision. I didn't want to destroy her. I wanted to surgically extract myself from her life with every asset intact, leaving her with the one thing she never wanted, accountability. After the legal wheels were set in motion, I turned my attention to the public narrative. Not through gossip, through documentation. I sent one email to her business partner. It wasn't emotional. It was a summary. I believe it's only fair that you're made aware of certain behaviors that may affect the professional image of your brand. Attached are screenshots, timestamps, and an outline of events that occurred during company-sponsored travel. That was it. Just enough to plant a flag. I didn't send it to ruin her, only to ensure that when she tried to spin the story of a controlling husband who couldn't handle her independence, there was already a paper trail waiting to contradict her. I also mailed a single envelope to her parents. Handwritten. No venom. Just truth. You raised someone capable of great influence. I wanted you to see what she chose to do with it. Inside were a few choice pieces of evidence and a short note saying I wished them peace, but I could no longer be part of the lie. Next came the social accounts. I didn't post. I didn't subtweet. I simply unlinked everything we shared, photos, check-ins, anniversaries. I locked down my privacy settings and archived the years she might try to weaponize. I didn't erase them. I just filed them under irrelevant. She would notice eventually, and when she did, the silence would speak louder than any status update. Then, I reached out to Margot, told her, calmly, that I'd appreciated her honesty and asked her to kindly disengage from Janine's spiraling. She'll come to you, I said, and when she does, she'll try to twist everything. Just remember what you saw, not what she says. Margot agreed. I could tell by her voice she was already pulling back. The last move was the home. I had already preemptively filed the property separation document. What Janine didn't realize was that her name wasn't on the deed. She'd insisted I handle the closing back then, too busy with her early coaching clients. So I simply changed the locks. Sent her a notice through the lawyer, offering a temporary housing stipend in exchange for immediate relocation. Fair, civil, legally sound, and final. I didn't slam a door. I removed it from the frame. She still hadn't responded to the filing by the time I left that document with the concierge at her co-working space, delivered in a navy blue envelope with a gold seal, because I believe even endings deserve elegance. She still thinks she can spin the story, that she has time to sway the narrative, control the optics, reclaim the power. But she doesn't. She lost at the moment she mistook my silence for weakness. What she doesn't understand is that every day she delayed the truth, I was collecting it. Every lie she told, I was filing it. And every time she looked at me and saw nothing, she failed to notice that nothing is the most dangerous thing a man can become, because from there, he can build anything, including her exit, including his freedom. And now, As she stares at the pieces of a life she thought she controlled, she still doesn't realize the game ended before she even sat down at the board. She walked into the gallery wearing white, of course, draped in some gauzy designer thing that made her look like the goddess of reinvention she always fancied herself to be. It was the launch party for the new wellness initiative she'd been bragging about for months, held in a boutique art space downtown, full of reclaimed wood, curated lighting, and influencers pretending to feel things about abstract brushstrokes. She moved through the crowd like she still believed the lie could hold, smiling with her eyes first, offering double cheek kisses to women who admired her from a distance but never quite knew what she was. Her voice had that high, honeyed tone she reserved for public performance, telling anyone who would listen about transformational ecosystems and emotional alignment in the post-relationship identity space. She even waved at me across the room, as if we were co-conspirators in her ascent, not the opposing generals on a battlefield she still didn't understand she'd already lost. I waved back, politely, then returned to my conversation with her business partner, well, former partner now. The man had read the email. He'd seen the evidence. But he kept his expression neutral, sipping his drink like we were simply discussing strategy. "It's a shame," he said quietly, "how far someone can drift from who they were." I nodded. "But you can only drift if you untie yourself first." Then, just after the soft jazz gave way to ambient pop, just after she started her little welcome speech with a laugh and a line about the power of truth, the projector clicked on behind her. The photos appeared, 6 of them, looped silently. Her with Ethan. Her alone in his mirror. Her calendar entries, mismatched and damning. Her text bubble, "He's too boring to notice anything." There was no sound. No dramatic cue. Just a slow, looping carousel of betrayal, lit in soft blue light against the wall behind her. She didn't notice at first. She kept talking. Until she didn't. One by one, heads turned. One by one, eyes locked on the screen. Her voice faltered. Her hand, which had been mid-gesture, froze in the air like a broken metronome. "What is that?" she asked, but her mic was still on, and the whole room heard the panic bloom. Her business partner stepped forward. Not to stop it, just to look. Then Margot appeared from the edge of the crowd, arms folded, expression stony, and Janine's face shattered for the first time. "Margot," she said, voice cracking. "This isn't. These are out of context. This is private." But no one moved to protect her. No one looked away. Her family was there too, her parents, her sister. They'd come down for the launch, expecting to witness her next big triumph. Her father's mouth was tight. Her mother's lips pressed thin like someone holding back a scream. Her sister turned away first. Not dramatically. Just enough to say, without words, "You are not the woman we thought you were." And Ethan? He wasn't there. I knew he wouldn't be. 2 days ago, after one anonymous message and a forwarded audio clip, he'd blocked her on every platform and deleted the photos she'd begged him to keep. Janine had messaged him 22 times since. I know, because I had access. Her soulmate had vanished the moment her drama threatened his reputation. And still, she stood there, trying to perform. "This is a hack," she said, louder now, but no one believed her. "Some kind of coordinated attack. My account was compromised." But her voice trembled, and the sweat at her temples betrayed the words. She looked for me then. Not because she thought I could save her, but because I was the last person who knew all her passwords, all her secrets, all the gaps between who she was and who she pretended to be. And when she saw me standing still, calm, hands clasped in front of me like a man attending a wake, she broke. Her voice rose. "You did this," she screamed. "You spied on me. You planted this. You're pathetic." No one moved. No one defended her. I didn't say a word. I didn't have to. My silence roared louder than anything she could scream. And that's when her hands started to shake. The pitch in her voice climbed. "You think this makes you strong?" she hissed. "You think this makes you better than me? You're nothing without me. You don't even know who you are without being my support system." I blinked slowly. Her world had always been built on the assumption that I needed her. That her chaos was magnetic. That my stillness was weakness. But in that moment, surrounded by the wreckage of her lies, she finally saw the truth. It wasn't the exposure that undid her. It wasn't the photos or the whispers or even the silence in the room. It was me, still there, watching, not cruel, not triumphant, just present, unshaken, free. And that's what destroyed her. Not the evidence, not the loss, but the realization that I didn't need to raise my voice to end her narrative. I just needed to stay. And so I did. It happened 2 days later at her sister's engagement party, of all places, a perfectly decorated garden affair with champagne flutes, fairy lights, and a live quartet playing covers of 90s pop songs like they were funeral dirges. Janine was already there when I arrived, laughing too loudly, her makeup too perfect, her voice cutting through conversations like glass under pressure. She didn't see me at first, but her father did. He nodded. Respectful. Her mother didn't meet my eyes. Her sister, blissfully unaware of what storm was about to drop, gave me a hug and thanked me for coming. And then Janine turned around and froze. Just for a second. Then the mask snapped back on. Wow, she said, walking toward me, voice all velvet and venom. Didn't expect you to show your face after your little tantrum. The table next to us went quiet. I looked at her, expression neutral. Thought you might want to explain why you spent 3 years claiming I didn't support you while funneling business expenses into hotel rooms and lingerie for a man who dumped you the second his DMs got exposed. Her jaw twitched. You're still dragging this out, she said. Still trying to make me the villain because you couldn't keep my attention? Gasps. Real ones. Her aunt dropped her napkin. A waiter froze mid-pour. No, I said, voice sharper now. You made yourself the villain. I just wrote down the dates. And the dollar amounts. And the names. She laughed. Shrill. Unsteady. You think this is justice? You think anyone actually cares that our marriage didn't survive your emotional constipation? That was it. The snap. You mean the marriage you hollowed out while pretending to be enlightened? I said. The one where I spent 10 years begging for eye contact while you built a brand off borrowed intimacy and filtered lies? Her face flushed red. I tried, Carl. I tried to love someone who had the emotional range of a parking ticket. I tried to reignite something in a man who schedules foreplay and files feelings like invoices. The crowd murmured. Her sister's fiancé stepped forward, unsure if he should intervene. I didn't move. You tried. I snapped. Is that what it was when you told Ethan I was too dull to suspect a thing? When you mocked me for taking care of your father while you were off meditating in a stranger's bed? Was that effort? Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. Her mother stepped forward. That's enough. No, I said, never taking my eyes off Janine. It's not. Because this woman didn't just cheat on me, she plagiarized a life. She took every moment we built and sold it for followers and flings. She gaslit me for months while writing fake empowerment blogs in a man's apartment she called Healing Loft. Janine lunged then, not physically, but verbally, claws out. You're pathetic, she screamed. This is why I left. This petty, controlling, vindictive side of you. You couldn't handle a woman with ambition. You needed a pet, not a partner. That's when her father stepped in. Janine, he said, voice low. Enough. She turned on him. Don't you dare take his side. He's manipulating all of you. He's always been good at playing the martyr. But no one was looking at me with pity. They were looking at her. At the cracks. At the way her voice broke on the last word. At the way her hands trembled as she pointed at me like a cornered animal trying to hiss away the inevitable. Her best friend, standing behind the buffet table, just shook her head. We warned you, she said. He told the truth. You just never thought anyone would believe it. Janine spun back to me, eyes glassy. You ruined my career, she whispered. You humiliated me. I stepped closer. Not threatening. Just final. You did that, I said. You brought a torch to a marriage and blamed me for the smoke. You seduced sympathy, sold your soul for applause, and now you're standing in the ashes wondering why no one claps anymore. Silence. Thick. Heavy. People backing away like witnesses to a crash they couldn't stop. Her mother began crying. Her father looked down. And Janine? She stood there alone, shaking, mascara slipping, still trying to find a thread of dignity to hold on to. But there was none left. And I? I didn't storm off. I didn't yell. I just buttoned my jacket, straightened my cuffs, and turned without another word. The music hadn't resumed. The party was broken. But I walked out into the night with everything she'd lost: clarity, power, and peace. 6 months later, the woman who once stood on stages preaching authenticity couldn't get a single brand to return her emails. Her website was pulled offline after a wave of quiet but coordinated emails from former clients asking if their coaching payments had helped finance a months-long affair. Her podcast disappeared overnight, not from scandal but from silence. Sponsors vanished, listeners stopped tuning in, and even her co-host released a vague statement about misaligned values. The real blow came when her name was removed from the leadership board of the wellness startup she'd helped build quietly, discreetly, without confrontation, just an updated page and a missing bio. Her emotional empire crumbled not because anyone burned it down, but because its foundation had always been hollow, and now everyone could see straight through it. Margot stopped answering her calls. Her sister, once fiercely loyal, told her she wasn't welcome at the baby shower. Even her mother, the last soft place she thought she could land, declined to answer the door one Saturday morning when Janine showed up crying with a bottle of wine and an apology too late for anything except shame. She left town a few weeks later, moved to a two-bedroom rental in a mid-sized city 3 states away where no one knew her name or her past. Last I heard, she was working at a yoga studio, not teaching, folding towels and checking people in at the front desk under her maiden name, quietly trying to disappear inside a world she used to manipulate. Ethan vanished the week after the gallery, deleted his social accounts, blocked her number, and ghosted with all the grace of a man who was never planning to stay once the lights came on. She reached out to me once in September, left a voicemail. Her voice was hoarse, trembling, no performance left in it. "Carl," she said, "I know you'll never forgive me, and I don't expect you to, but I wanted you to know I still love you. I never stopped. I was just scared. Of getting older. Of feeling invisible. You were the only real thing in my life. And I destroyed it. I see that now. I hope you're okay. I hope you're happy." She paused, then added, "Please, if you can find it in your heart, just talk to me." I listened to it once. Deleted it. A week later, she showed up at my door. I saw her through the peephole, hair tied back, makeup gone, shoulders hunched under a coat too big for her frame. I opened the door just enough to hear her voice crack when she said my name. "Carl, please. I don't have anywhere else to go. I needed to see your face." I didn't yell. I didn't ask why. I just looked at her. And in that moment, I felt nothing. Not anger. Not grief. Just the same dull distance you feel looking at a stranger who vaguely resembles someone you used to know. "I don't hate you," I said. "But I don't know you. And I don't talk to strangers." I closed the door. She didn't knock again. That was the last time I saw her. And to be honest, I don't miss her. Not even in the quiet. Not even when I walk past the places we used to love. Because some ghosts don't haunt you. They just remind you what freedom feels like after you've buried the lie. Thank you for listening to my story. It's been a long one, and maybe a hard one, but if you made it this far, I want to know, where are you from? And did it hit you the way it hit me?